Year's Eve, the ER buzzed. A patient came in with a severely injured penis, bleeding heavily. He was my best friend, and the one who brought him, my fiancée, Chloe. Her hands were drenched in blood, trembling as she clutched my white coat, begging me to save him. I glanced at the wound. Shards of the sex toy I'd bought Chloe just 2 days prior were still embedded there. She stammered, frantically trying to explain. He was just drunk. It was an accident. I calmly put on my gloves, cutting her off. Go pay the fee. Sign is the responsible party. There was a time I'd get furious if she just had dinner with a male colleague. Now, watching her bring my best friend to the hospital after they cheated, my heart felt unsettlingly calm. Chloe stared at my placid face, her eyes suddenly welling up. Why aren't you angry? Angry? What's there to be angry about? Something dirty? You just cut it off. I expressionlessly pulled down the blinds. Turning around, Blake was groaning on the operating table. The anesthesiologist had just given him a shot, but it hadn't fully kicked in. Blake was drenched in cold sweat, yet seeing me, he smirked smugly. Liam, go easy. If you can't fix me, Chloe will be heartbroken. I probed the wound with a hemostat. Endure it if it hurts. The tweezers extracted a blood-soaked sex toy fragment. Blake flinched, letting out a pained shriek. Quite the thrill you had, huh? I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Blake gasped, his eyes defiant. Chloe said she wanted some excitement. I didn't want to, but she insisted. She said you're a nerd and I'm more fun. I looked at his penis, a wave of disgust washing over me. Half an hour later, the surgery was over. I peeled off my blood-stained gloves, packing the fragments as medical waste. Along with my last shred of feeling for these two, I tossed them into the biohazard bin. Stepping out of the operating room, Chloe rushed towards me immediately. Liam, let me explain. She stammered incoherently, her eyes bloodshot. You're the only one in my heart, really. I forcefully pulled my hand away. I'm a doctor. I cut her off. I only care if the patient's sexual function can recover, and if there will be any lasting complications. How you two ended up like this, I couldn't care less. Chloe looked at me in disbelief. You don't love me anymore? She actually had the nerve to ask that. I chuckled. As a doctor, the surgery was a success, though it might not be fully functional going forward. As your ex-fiancé, I wish you both happiness. Chloe's face instantly went ashen. I stepped back, checking my watch. I have 3 more emergencies waiting. Don't block me from saving lives. The next morning at 7 a.m., my clinic door was pushed open. Chloe stood there, holding a takeout bag. Liam, this is your favorite burger. I waited in line for an hour to get it. In the past, I would have been touched and hugged her. Now, I just felt sick to my stomach. What happened last night? It was my fault. I won't ever see him again. Please forgive me this one time, okay? She continued to apologize. I said nothing, taking the burger and handing it to a security guard. Chloe's smile froze, then twisted into shame and anger. Liam, I've humbled myself to come apologize to you. What more do you want? Blake and I were just drunk. Last night was an accident. Just then, the nurse station bell blared. A young nurse frantically ran over. Dr. Liam, the patient in room 16 is making a fuss. He says his wound hurts, claims the nurse who changed his dressing was too rough, and insists you go personally. Chloe immediately grew anxious at the mention of Blake's pain. She grabbed my arm, her tone softening again. Liam, you're a doctor. Go take a look. He is your best friend after all, and it would be terrible if it leaves a scar on his penis. I almost laughed out loud. It was such a mess, and he cared about how it looked. I picked up the dressing tray. Chloe breathed a sigh of relief, following me into the patient room. Blake was lying in bed, whining and groaning. Seeing me enter, he immediately stopped. Dr. Liam is finally here. His eyes flickered towards Chloe, his voice becoming overly delicate and fake. Chloe, I'm in so much pain. Please tell Liam to check on me. I put on my gloves and pulled back the blanket. The wound was red and swollen, and the exudate hadn't dried. When I